This video focuses on corporate transactions, specifically in the context of covenant risk management. As you'd expect, the new Pension Schemes Act is high on the agenda when we think about corporate transactions. We're seeing quite a lot of work around the employer insolvency test and the employer resources test. Many transactions impact insolvency outcomes or profitability, so could trigger these tests. And both the insolvency test and the resources test need care. The analysis should be robust but proportionate, and with a view of the bigger picture as context for any transaction. Trustee and sponsor engagement is important before, during, and after a transaction. The new notifiable events framework should improve engagement, and an information sharing protocol is a good way for trustees and sponsors to proactively engage on the key areas of concern, whether that relates to ongoing covenant risks or corporate transactions. Even where a transaction is covenant neutral in the round, it can materially change the covenant risk profile. For example, switching covenant reliance from a trading entity to a holding company, or a fundamental change to the business or strategy of the sponsor. Going back to the plausible downside scenarios in the last video, there may be new, different downside scenarios to plan for and mitigate following such a transaction, but the approach needs to be informed and balanced.
Depending on the nature of the transaction, trustees may be expected to mitigate detriment to covenant. Mitigation does not need to exactly reverse out detriment, it's about trying to find something of equivalent value. The previous two videos in this series talk about understanding covenant risk profile in more detail, and this provides a valuable base for assessing corporate transactions. Understanding the covenant risk profile can be the key to finding mutually acceptable terms. Otherwise, you can end up focusing on the wrong things or miscalibrating the value. For example, focusing on a relatively small cash lump sum when the right contingent asset could offer valuable downside protection in a plausible downside scenario. Also, a binding commitment to a specific journey plan can be valuable when a scheme is not in immediate need of cash but is looking to reduce long-term reliance on covenant. Our next video discusses endgame and risk transfer in more detail. Putting all of this video into practice, are you fully briefed on the new Pension Schemes Act, and how do you think about changing covenant risks arising from corporate transactions?